The National Weather Service has just issued a flash flood warning across Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Flash floods kill a lot of people in the United States every single year. More than lightning, more than hurricanes, and more than tornadoes. Sadly, a lot of these victims are families. They're either caught in their vehicles or caught in their homes in the middle of the night when these flash floods come through. According to Ready.gov and FEMA, all it takes is 6 inches of water, moving water, to knock a grown adult off of their feet. Now, that's a fact. You get out here in a moving stream like this, when the water picks up, a little bit of rapids, especially on a slick surface, you can definitely get swept off your feet pretty easily in a little bit of fast moving water. Now, take that water up about, let's say, to 12 inches. A small car trying to cross through 12 inches of fast moving water can get washed downstream. I had a buddy try to cross a river. It was probably about 1.5 feet of water, give or take. And he thought, it was a Toyota Tacoma trying to cross the river. He thought, no problem, I'll make it. His car got swept, the back end of the car, his truck got swept around and then swept downstream and then finally got lodged up against a big tree, kind of like this one right here on the riverbank. Totaled his truck, essentially, flooded it, which was pretty disheartening, I'm sure. Now, take that water up to 2 feet and more, it will wash away anything. If you've got a fast flowing stream, fast flowing flash flood, 2 feet of water, it doesn't matter what you're driving. The water pushes against those tires, pushes against the wheels of your vehicle and up, eventually touches the doors. It's a tremendous amount of force. I remember surfing in the ocean, and what you try not to do, that is get the surfboard between you and the wave, because that is hazardous to your health. If you can let the wave hit you and then the surfboard, you're generally okay, or face into it or duck dive under it or whatever. But if you're standing and a wave hits that surfboard against you, it's like getting hit by a car. It hurts, it's painful. So we always try to avoid that. But what I'm getting at is the force of water. It's so powerful. Most people underestimate it. They think, what's the worst that could happen? And which is oftentimes what I say, but you gotta listen to your instincts. If your instincts are saying, stay away from this flooded road, then listen to those instincts. Just wait it out. Even if you're, napping in your car overnight, don't drive through a flash flood zone. Now let's talk about the steps that we can go through to prepare our family, our home, our gear, our vehicles for a flash flood scenario. And if you like these types of videos, make sure you guys are hitting the thumbs up and subscribing to the channel, because we put out lots of content all the time. While volunteering after Hurricane Helene absolutely destroyed parts of North Carolina, we met a man who had his entire 2-story home washed completely away by a river, not very dissimilar to this right here. It looked like this 99.999% of the time, but that 0.0001% took his 2-story home away. And he told us about his neighbors that unfortunately did not survive because they tried to take shelter in their vehicle and escape the flood waters, as opposed to doing what he did and just heading to higher ground behind his house. He abandoned everything, got his dogs, and headed to high ground behind his house. And that was what enabled him to survive this horrible situation when his neighbors did not. Most people don't realize how fast the water can come up. It can come up really fast. It can go from a simple, calm little stream like this, a beautiful, pristine river, to a raging torrent that is 10, 15 more feet over my head in a very short period of time, depending on the rainfall, depending on the dams upstream, what's going on. Who knows what could happen? But we need to be aware of the possibility of this. And if there's any type of alert that you receive that flash flooding might happen or dams might be failing, you need to heed those warnings and get your family prepared. Possibly having, if you live in a floodplain, if you live near a big river like this one, or even a smaller one, I've seen streams like this turn into raging, angry beasts of a river in seconds. It's crazy how powerful something like this can be just from the runoff of a huge volume of rainfall. So having your family prepared, knowing what to do in a situation like that, like heading to high ground, which was definitely the best tactic, could be the difference between your family living and dying. FEMA actually has a pretty good phrase. It's turn around, don't drown. So particularly if you're in your vehicle and you're coming up onto a flooded road, just turn around. It's not worth it. You know, even if you've got the big SUV, you know, four-wheeler, but snorkel coming up out of it, big jacked up truck, it's really not worth losing all of that. Even if it's just damage to your vehicle or potentially loss of life, it's just not worth it. Just turn that thing around. Because as fast as those waters can rise, they can recede. So generally speaking, you're not going to be, you know, stuck on the hillside waiting this thing out forever. The water comes up really fast and it goes down really fast oftentimes. Because most flash flood deaths occur in vehicles. And like I was talking about before, that surfboard scenario, imagine that amount of water being pressed against a door. There's no way you're going to overcome moving water over a door. There's no way you're going to be strong enough to open that thing up. Potentially be able to bust the glass, windows, and things like that. But even then, fast moving waters, if your vehicle gets wedged up against the side of a river or up against an embankment or a bridge, it's going to be really difficult. So best to avoid it altogether if possible. Having alternative routes to and from work, home, school, whatever it is always going to be important in case one route, your primary route that you typically take, is flooded for some reason. You can, generally speaking, find a way around it. Maybe not, but generally speaking, there's probably going to be at least one or two other ways that you can access your home or school or work. Having paper maps of your local area is always important, or just kind of memorizing, scouting out these routes ahead of time. You should definitely pay attention to alerts. You know, you get alerts on your phone, severe weather alerts and things like that all the time, at least we do. You should definitely pay attention to those, but don't count on it. Just because you haven't received some sort of alert doesn't mean that a flash flood isn't coming your way. Lots of people during Hurricane Helene didn't have any cell phone coverage. The towers were down. They weren't capable of getting those alerts. So don't count on them. Listen to them, heed those warnings, but don't count on them. Having backup forms of communication or just ways to receive information like a handheld radio with rechargeable batteries is always helpful, so you can tune into emergency stations. An NOAA radio specifically designed, specific stations for national alerts is always going to be helpful to have.
Because they work when cell phone towers are down. Yeah. Say that.
Because a radio like that can work even when cell phone towers, internet is down. If you do live in a possible flood area, even if it's very unlikely, but a possible flood area, it's probably advised to keep your valuables, your important documents, you know, titles to vehicles, things of that nature, above the water line, perhaps. You know, don't keep it in the basement where, you know, potential floodwaters can come in. Even if it's not a flash flood just going to wipe you off the face of the earth, just that water in your home soaking up the walls and into those important documents and things can cause a whole lot of damage, and we don't want those headaches. So move that stuff up to higher ground and store it on one of the higher levels. Having copies of those documents is also really important. You can have digital copies on a small little flash drive. You can have copies of passports and driver's licenses and social security cards. You can have all that stuff on a tiny little thumb drive for your entire family if you chose to do so, and I think it's probably a pretty good idea. Having a bag like this packed and ready to go with the essentials in it saves time, it saves chaos. It saves you having to worry about what you might need in the heat of the moment when that flash flood, when the floodwaters are coming in your home. Having a bag sitting by your front door or in your vehicle ready to go, ready to rock at a moment's notice is always important. What's in a bag like this? I've done tons of videos on my channel about what you might put in a bag like this, but essentially, in a nutshell, food, fire, water, shelter, security, communication, and first aid. Those are the things that you should have in a go bag, a get home bag, a bug out bag. Now, of those 7 items that I just mentioned, probably the most important, arguably the most important, is water. How are you going to get water? You can't carry that much water because it's friggin' heavy. It takes up a lot of space. So having a way to get clean water. Bleach is always a good option to have in your home, so you can treat some water and kill those waterborne pathogens, the microbes and nasty, because flood water is gross. There is everything from septic tanks to fertilizer runoff from golf courses to just imagine all the stuff. Let's imagine a garage, a workshop, a car garage getting flooded out, and all the oil and just anything and everything that you can imagine getting pushed into that water. It's pretty dang nasty. So having a way to filter water in your home, like a Berkey, a Grail water filter is what I keep in my pack because I trust them. I've used them all over the world and I've never gotten sick, even in some nasty, nasty places and drinking some nasty water. So having a way to make water safe, water purification tablets, filter it, and make it safe by filtration, boiling perhaps, big pots at your home, ways that you can heat that water up and make it safe, just alternative ways to get water. That's going to be really high on that priority list. Now, as far as vehicle preparedness goes, like I said, having a pack like this one ready to go in your vehicle, along with some other emergency supplies specifically for a vehicle, jumper cables and all that kind of good stuff. Park your vehicle on higher ground if possible, so you don't even have to worry about the floodwaters damaging it or taking it away, perhaps. Keep it topped off on gas. Like I always say, a quarter tank is empty. If you get below a quarter tank, you've already run out of gas. In most places, if you've got a quarter tank of gas, you can try, and most vehicles are fuel efficient enough to do this, you can get a long ways away from the danger zone with that much fuel. So quarter tank is empty, treat it as such, and top off that fuel tank as quickly as possible. If you know there's a hurricane coming, possible floods coming your way, go ahead and top that fuel tank off before the lines get crazy. Be the first one there. Be proactive instead of reactive. All right, guys, I hope you found these tips to be helpful. There's a bug in my eye. Hopefully you heed this life-saving advice, this potential life-saving advice, and you do the necessary preparations for you and your family to survive the next disaster. Hopefully it never comes. If you like what you've seen here today, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up. In the description and in the comment section of this video, there's going to be links to all sorts of ways you can help support the channel and also get a lot more life-saving survival type information as well. Thanks for watching, friends. Until next time, what's the worst that could happen? Let's just go on 3.
Yes.